Somebody is talking, don't talk. The pulses bispherians. We start taking with pulses bispherians and anacrotic pulse. Both the pulses have two peaks, two beats. It is disturbing. Somebody is there. Please switch on systole in both of them. Twice beating pulse in systole. When you have anacrotic pulse, you have slow rising. This is slow rising. You have the percussion and the tidal wave. When I say the pulses bispherians, you have a strong percussion wave followed by a small wave. Strong percussion wave followed by a small wave. This is the difference between the anacrotic and the pulses bispherians. Now this is found in aortic stenosis. Aortic stenosis. Whereas the pulses bispherians pulse is formed with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. It is found under your idiopathic hypertrophic subaortic stenosis. Idiopathic hypertrophic subaortic stenosis. This is found here. Then it is found in your typhoid fever. Sorry, not in typhoid fever. It is found in mild AI with AS. AI with aortic incompetence with aortic stenosis. So three places you find the pulses bispherians. Now we go into the third pulse. The third pulse is your dicrotic pulse. First we had the anacrotic pulse, now we have the dicrotic pulse. Again, in the as different from the anacrotic pulse, the dicrotic pulse has also twice beating pulse. One beating pulse is in. So the different phases of the cardiac cycle, you have the twice different beating pulse. So you have in systole one and one you have in diastole. One you have in systole and one in diastole. This is again twice beating pulse. Similar to the other two, there are twice beating pulse. There you had both the pulses in the systole itself. Here you have one in systole and in one diastole. There was again a difference between the percussion and the slow wave, and there was a percussion in the tidal wave in the other way. This is the differences you need to understand, because now the questions, some tricky questions are there. So these are the things where they can make you confused. Now when we're talking about the dicrotic pulse, the dicrotic pulse is found in congestive cardiac failure and dilated cardiomyopathy. Congestive cardiac failure and dilated cardiomyopathy. In the cases of typhoid fevers also you have the dicrotic pulses. At times you find in the typhoid fever you find the dicrotic. Then cardiac tamponade also. One thing again, cardiac tamponade is also there. This cardiac tamponade. So these are the reason for congestive cardiac failure, dilated cardiomyopathy, cardiac tamponade and typhoid. These are the places you find the dicrotic pulses. Now the third pulse which we'll be talking is the pulses parvus et tardus. Pulses parvus et tardus. The name itself says the slow rising pulse. So this is slow rising pulse like an anacrotic pulse. This is like an anacrotic pulse, but this is just slow rising pulse. So this is found in aortic stenosis. This is found in aortic stenosis. These are slow rising pulse like anacrotic pulse. This is found in aortic stenosis. Now the other important pulses are pulses alternans. The pulses alternans. Or pulses alternans when you have strong and weak pulses together. You have strong and weak pulses. These are known as pulses alternans. This is found in left ventricular failure. This is the most important question which has been asked in many times about the left ventricular failure. Which pulse is being formed? This is the pulsus alternans. Then you have paroxysmal tachycardia. PSPT, I should say, supraventricular tachycardia. There you find it. And toxic myocarditis. This is toxic myocarditis. So these are the three places you find it. Right, toxic myocarditis. Okay. So these are the three places where you find the pulsus alternans. Now you have the pulsus paradoxus. This is the most asked pulse. What does pulsus paradoxus says? What does pulsus paradoxus says? During inspiration, you have a decrease in BP. The BP falls down under inspiration. When this BP falls more than 10 mm of Hg, this is known as paradox, and the pulse is known as pulsus paradoxus. So during inspiration, we know the blood pressure falls from 3 to 10 mm of Hg. When this is higher than 10 mm of Hg, this is known as paradoxus, and this is known as pulsus paradoxus. So there are two important reasons. First is your reasons from the lungs. Reason from the lungs. These are the most asked question. This is found under asthma. This is found under obstruction of lungs. This is found under pulmonary embolism. This is found under your pulmonary embolism. So these are the places where you find these things. Even in cases of your emphysema, also you find pulsus paradoxus. Now, when you come down to the cardiac origin causes, when I say the cardiac origin causes, then the cardiac origin causes are your pericardial effusion. Pericardial effusion. First is your pericardial effusion. Then you have constructive pericarditis and severe congestive failure. Constructive pericarditis. And you have severe heart failure. So this was about your types of pulses we have been talking about. There is one other pulse which is known as your water hammer pulse. Water hammer pulse. Water hammer pulse. The water hammer pulse, when you have a pulse pressure difference, you have large pulse. I would say first we'll not talk about the pulse pressure difference. I should talk about the large volume pulse. This is large volume pulse. Large volume pulse. What do you do it? You keep your hands and fingers such a rolling way. This will come under over this, and these four fingers will come over your artery. And when you raise this, keep one hand here and the other here. When you raise this hand, you will not feel the pulse. So this is known as your water hammer pulse. This water hammer pulse is because of the increased stroke volume and decreased peripheral resistance, because of your increased stroke volume and decreased peripheral difference. And this is because of all the condition which you have wide pulse pressure, all the condition relating with the piled pulse pressure will cause the water hammer pulse. So when we say about the wide pulse pressure, you have the physiological reasons and you have the pathological reason. Your physiological reasons are pregnancy, fever, and alcoholism. Pregnancy, fever, and alcoholism. There you'll find water hammer pulse. Then there are other reasons where high output sport you'll find anemia, beriberi, thyrotoxicosis, anemia, beriberi, thyrotoxicosis, anemia, beriberi, thyrotoxicosis. Here you find white pulse pressure, and even in cirrhosis of liver you find white pulse pressure. Beriberi. So these are the places where you find the white pulse pressure and you find the water hammer. Now when I say the pulse pressure, when I talked about the pulse pressure, what is this pulse pressure?